Yo, YouTube, what up? I am super excited today. In the boot camp, we had a wonderful guest speaker, goes by the name of Phylaris, aka Phil. Really good jungler, really cool friend. He and I talked about jungle philosophy, clearing, all sorts of stuff. So you're a jungler, you're gonna love this, and if you're not a jungler, you're still gonna love this. The guy's great. And this kind of serves as a bonus advertisement. I actually went ahead, because I liked our conversation so much, I went ahead and added Phylaris to the NEACE.gg site. I promise you, after hearing him talk, you're going to want to book this guy for coaching. Book him sooner rather than later. Don't miss out. I'm busy running my boot camp, so you will be in very good hands with him. I'm going to let him sell himself with this wonderful talk that we pulled from the boot camp. I hope everything is going well, you guys. And yes, thank you so much for all the support. And make sure to check out Phylaris Coaching. I got to go. Love you. See you soon. Peace.
Whenever you're doing corner crosses, there's something that I call tangent kiting.
Okay.
This is really hard to explain.
No.
But
You want to share your screen and show it?
Okay, this is very niche. It doesn't come up very often.
No, but it's cool. It's fascinating. You're good, dude.
All right. Let's say this is the monster, right? Here's the monster's attack range, and let's say you're Karthus, you're some champion, and you're on this side, and you want to cross to the other side of the monster, right?
Okay.
Because it's early game, the monster takes a while to kill. This is what most people do. They run straight through the camp. And if you think about it, this doesn't make any sense because the amount of time in units that you spend in the monster's attack range is this much, right? Because you enter its range here and you exit its range here. But when you're crossing, you actually want to go tangent. It's just very basic. Like, here's the monster, here's you. You want to cross like this because you're only in its attack range crossing at this one point. So generally speaking, you'll only take one auto when crossing here. Whereas if you go like this, you'll take an auto here and you'll take an auto here because you're spending longer in its range.
As you kind of like scoot by the fence, so to speak.
Yeah, so that's the reason for that weird triangular motion rather than just like a straight line.
Yeah, no, this is cool because I didn't quite understand. It was one of those things where I was learning by doing, not by knowing. And so like the Karthus clear was like a perfect example of that. I wasn't sure what was happening, but I noticed as soon as I copied it, it was like way better clear. 11.7.
All right.
Yeah.
Nerfs just came in. Actually, they're really not as bad as I thought for Hecarim and Udyr. I thought it was going to be bigger than this. 2 base AD on Udyr's not going to do much. Right now, because this really impacts his early clear time, right? 2 AD, that's about it. Yeah. Right now, he clears leashless if you do it optimally in like 302. So this is going to shift it to like what, 305 at most. It's not a big deal if you know how to clear.
With Udyr, you mean? Yes.
Yeah. Hecarim change. This is actually kind of big, not too big, probably like a 1% win rate shift. It's not a huge deal, but it's there.
What about, well, how do you feel about the chem tank though? The chem tank being nerfed, I think, is significant too. In addition 15%. To the nerfs, yeah. It definitely doesn't invalidate either of these champions, to be honest.
I'm actually of the opinion that chem tank's not as broken as people think it is.
You know, not even on like the Hecarim build? Have you seen that, no, the Korean one?
That guy, I'm a Hecarim main personally. I've been a Hecarim main for a long time.
Oh, okay,
so I've followed that guy
good.
For
this
years.
is good. This is good. This is good.
So, like, just let's pull up that guy's OPGG. Let me show you what this guy actually does. Like, the reason the trend started is because of this guy, this one challenger.
Let me pull you up. Let me pull you up. This is cool though that you happen to main this champion. I like that. I like these opinions. Yes, because it's not a champion that I mained it a little bit while I was screwing around in EUS, but I certainly didn't. I haven't been like a long-term main or anything.
So the reason this thing happens,
it's this guy.
This guy originally went Triforce, and then he made a sudden shift to Chem Tank and started winning a lot of games, and it caught on. But this guy doesn't even go Chem Tank anymore. Like, it's not integral to the champion's success. Almost all of his recent games are Triforce and Sunderer, and he's on like a crazy win streak. It looks
like he still pulls it out from time to time. I wonder what his conditions are for a Chem Tank build as opposed to I wonder why he thinks. You see how he switches it off sometimes?
Yeah. I can talk about that a little bit since I play so much Hecarim.
Sure.
First thing I would recommend is if you don't play this champ a lot, don't switch. Same for any champion. Like, having a good idea, good sense of your champion's limits is more important than like a small optimization in builds. So if you don't main the champion, pick one build and stick with it. But if you do main a champion, you have the time to play lots of games with each individual mythic and different builds, and you can get acquainted with the limits of each one. So For a main, yes, you'll definitely see them swapping a lot. When it comes to Hecarim's actual mythics, there's 4 mythics that are, I think, pretty viable. There's Stridebreaker, Triforce, Sunderer, and Chemtank.
Okay.
The thing with Chemtank is this thing is viable because of CDR boots. That's it. These 2 items got buffed in conjunction. Bami's Cinder is the worst fucking item in the game. This thing is utter dog shit. If you look at this item, it's been nerfed so hard since season 10.
Yeah.
It used to give 100% bonus increase against monsters. Now it's 25%. The actual value you get out of this item is super nerfed compared to before. It feels so bad to be sitting on a Bami's until you reach Chemtank. Chemtank itself is a good mythic. Bami sucks. The reason the build works is because you rush CDR boots, and CDR boots are such a strong early spike right now on so many junglers. This gives you the offensive tempo to clear properly, to get around the map properly, and this basically holds you over to Chemtank. That's why this guy always goes CDR boots no matter what, if he's going the Chemtank build. And if you notice,
actually, now seeing this, mythics, I think when I was testing this build, I think I was doing it wrong. I don't think I was rushing out Lucidity boots every time, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Would explain
there's a lot of junglers like this right now. And if you go to the other builds, Triforce, you don't see a single Lucidity boot. Because Triforce, you can go Sheen, you can go other strong early spikes, right? There's Tabbies, Mercs. But
yeah, I was definitely winning more. I was definitely winning more going Triforce too. Like when I was playing like EOS and screwing around, or like even on Smurfs and stuff, I was like, okay, this build's supposed to be high win rate, but I must be doing something wrong with it. And I think that was it. Yeah. That probably makes sense. Cool.
The main quirk of Chemtank is that when you combine it with Phase Rush, the Immolate actually counts as a Phase Rush proc. So when you're running by someone and you WQ while you're running, that's 2 procs, and the Immolate does the 3rd proc. So you get the Phase Rush before you even E onto the target. So that's the big thing with Chemtank. It lets you pull off like the old Predator Hecarim lane ganks, where you just run straight down the lane past the target and push them back in.
Yep.
And that's like the big advantage of this setup.
Yeah, I did definitely notice like right away you would get that Phase Rush proc like instantly. Cool. Wait, so what else do we have here on this list of there's something else I wanted to talk to you about.
I got stuff to talk about.
Let's do it, dude. I'm down, brother. Yeah, I'm good to go.
Something I really wanted to talk about earlier that we kind of brushed past a little bit was the camera control stuff. Yeah. I really like to pull up this one video as an example of how bad people are at controlling their camera and why this is a micro thing, not a macro thing. Yes. This is an example of Faker actually playing. He's a mid laner. Watch how he controls his camera as soon as he starts looking for a roam. Look at this shit.
Yeah, yeah. I'm very familiar with this. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
This is why I've started working on F keys. I'm not trying to be a pro player, obviously, but as a coach, I definitely want to practice what I preach, right? So like everything that I do, I do it in mind with with the clients or whatever. Yeah, I love this stuff. And for now, one of the things that I've had, I don't know if you saw the beginning of this boot camp, one of the main things that I told people was like, all right, no more locked camera. I mean, even here you can see he's never.
Yeah.
He's always positioning his camera really well. This is a great demo.
He's like, it's not just, he sees the whole map. He sees everything, especially the lane he's roaming towards. He's also not sacrificing his own individual integrity. Like if you translate it to a clear, it'd be like, he's not sacrificing his clearing ability.
Oh, of course. No. His laning is not at risk. And it's super easy to make a mistake too. Like I'm sure you're familiar with the classic example of like, you're about to gank, you move in for the gank, and then someone jumps you, but you were looking at your chance. You're looking at the gank too far. Yeah. Someone jumps you, get a bad start on the play, and then you're like, oh shit, I should have been a little bit more alert.
People just don't realize that this is so mechanical. Like if you look at this, you don't get this without explicitly practicing it. It's not just like, oh, you don't use F keys, try using F keys more. It's practice this. You can't reach a level like this without drilling something like this. It's so excessive. You don't have to be on the level of Faker, but when you compare what he sees to what most junglers see, even in like Plat Diamond, it's night and day, man. When I watch like Diamond players, they're like, I'm just staring at the champion auto attacking for 95% of the game. I can't see what's going on at all. And I think the goal you should be striving towards is for a VOD to be similar to a replay. What that means is when you watch a replay, you have full vision, right? You can click over to any of the 3 lanes and see what's actually going on.
Yeah.
When you have like a first person VOD, usually you can't see shit because you're just staring at your champion clearing, and you'd have to pull up the replay to figure out what's going on in the lanes. Your goal should be roughly for them to be equivalent.
Yeah, you
even in
should
the
be
first
able,
person
as
VOD,
you
should be
clear.
able
Yeah,
to
this is
see.
perfect. This is perfect. Yes. As you clear from, you know, let's say we're starting at blue, as you're finishing, and I always tell clients, I'm like, hey, you know, you don't have to see every single lane when you're starting out. Let's just keep the camera, like, if I'm clearing towards Gromp, I really want my clients to at least be checking bot lane, right? If they're clearing towards wolves, I want them checking mid, or maybe like, you know, 30% towards bot lane. And as they slide up, that focus should shift up. So it should be mid to top and top. You see what I'm saying? Like,
Exactly. There's so much downtime in jungling when you're not actually doing anything active with your character. You're either running between camps or you're just like AFK autoing a camp. You're in fountain deciding where to go. You need to be active in these times, not lazy. You need to figure out what's actually happening on the map, not just right now, but you evaluate what you see. You evaluate the wave states and figure out what's the map going to be like projected in 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. You can't properly path without doing that because you need an expectation of what's going to happen.
Yeah, dude, I'm so glad we're talking about this stuff. This is great. I'd be like, I don't know. I've had I've had so many clients getting frustrated when I'm pulling them off of locked camera, and I mean, you can attest to how ridiculous it is that they're playing on locked camera at all in the first place in a game where the amount of information that we collect directly translates into the accuracy of the decisions that we make.
I understand why they're hesitant to do it because it's so hard to pull off of it at first because you're used to it. But that's like inherently saying, I'm fine with where I am, but I want to improve. That makes no sense, right? You have to be fine with letting go of what you're comfortable with because a lot of what you're comfortable with is bad habits. And you have to put work into getting rid of them. It's uncomfortable, but it's, you know, it's for the long run.
Yeah, the analogy here would be like, if I went to play basketball and I learned how to dribble, the first thing you're going to do when you're learning how to dribble is you're going to stare pretty much at the ground. That's a pretty common thing, is you like stare at the ground, you stare at your hand, you make sure that the ball is like connecting with your hand. And then the coaches are like, all right, now you got to keep your head up. And then immediately you're like bouncing the ball off your foot. And then the coach is like, all right, well, now you got to dribble with the other hand. And then all hell breaks loose.
That's a great analogy. That's a great analogy because it's just like jungle clearing. You have to... First, you have to get good at jungle clearing. Then you have to get so good and natural at it that you can take your eye off the ground, so to speak, to actually look at the map without sacrificing your clear. That's all fundamentals.
Yeah, that would be the direct comparison that I would make. So what would you say then? I would argue that camera control in the jungle is probably more important than all the other roles. And it is probably the role that I find that players actually have the worst camera control.
Yes, for sure. I 100% agree with that.
You notice that? Like, all the clients that I coach, they lock right in on those freaking camps. They stare right at them. They stare at the ground.
I understand it. It's, you technically have the most active time as a jungler where you have to be like hitting camps, kiting. I understand it, but that doesn't make it any better. It needs to be fixed. And it doesn't extend, like we talked about clearing, we talked about camera control. There's so much more that goes into what I would call micro or mechanics rather than macro. There's also pinging, there's also timers. Those aren't macro things. What you do with that information is macro, but tracking it in the first place, that's micro, and it needs to be practiced. When you look at like LEC or like LCS or LCK supports, for example, they're like constantly tracking timers and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's important. That's tracking information that tells you where to go. It helps you make your proper decisions. Nobody does that in solo queue unless you're like actually playing in Challenger with like an academy support or something on your team.
You mean timers as in some timers?
Oh, even more than that.
Are you talking, what other timers are you referring to?
First off, there are some timers, flash and TP. Because your supports aren't tracking that, you should be tracking that actively. Not just, you know, like a lot of junglers just like ping it on the scoreboard and then they forget about it and they don't like go back to it and actually track it.
You saw that doing B video?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But beyond just that, there's also camp timers. You know, people get really lazy about this because you have like the gold hourglass respawns, right?
I definitely fall in that category. Absolutely, I fall in that camp of like
there's
laziness.
no way that's enough. Because the thing is, that's 15 seconds out. That's not 60 seconds out. It's too late if you're on the other side of the map and you see the golden hourglass. That's too late to orient your pathing. At that point, you're pathing reactively rather than proactively with the information that you should have had. And where this really bites people in the ass is especially when they're invading and like how to push leads as a jungler. So like something low elo junglers are really bad at. Let's say you take a really typical start where let me get up my tablet. So let's say you're a full clear jungler, you do red, Krugs, Raptors, Wolves, Blue, Gromp, Scuttle, typical, right?
Yep.
And then you go invade Raptors or whatever. This is a very, very typical opening right now. Low elo junglers, mid elo junglers, like say Plat or something, they'll be happy with this. They'll go like, okay, finished my full clear, I got my Scuttle, I took his Raptors, I'm up on this guy. Great start. That's not how a good jungler sees this situation. A good jungler is tracking the key timers. Number one, as you get good, you don't have to like actually track it super specifically anymore.
Not to a T, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's important to distinguish, right? Just because I think some players would be like, "Oh my god, do I have to?" No, it's a rhythm too, for sure.
Exactly. Also, it's not every camp because you're generally clearing linearly. So you generally just track the first camp or the last camp. So if you clear, say, Gromp at 6 minutes, you just type like 8G. And then just like a quick 8G. If you clear Raptors, if that's where you're starting your clear and you clear Raptors at like 10:30, you just like type 12:30 RA for 12:30 Raptors. And that just it takes half a second. So it just tells you where the path is starting and everything comes up linearly after that. Where that's super important is with counter jungling. Because when you counter jungle, it's not supposed to just be one camp that you take. This is supposed to represent quadrant control because you're getting this timer and there's a timer disparity. You have the timer, the opponent doesn't. So if you're not actively tracking this timer, you can't repeat punish properly. Whereas let's say you come in, you take this at say 4:30, it respawns at 6:30, you take his Krugs after. At 6:30, depending on the enemy jungler's pathing, you have an opportunity to swoop back in here, take it again. And then you have the timers again, you can come back and potentially do it again. And oftentimes good junglers, if you develop an early lead, you can push one counter jungle rotation into like full quadrant control for like the next 10 minutes of the game. It's so punishing. But if you're not actively tracking these timers, it's like, then you're like, oh, maybe I'm at Krugs while this is coming up. Oh, well, oops.
Yeah, it becomes very nebulous, right? Like if we're not actively tracking it. I mean, guys, for those who are saying there wasn't enough high elo conversation on the boot camp to begin with, I mean, this is definitely very high level. I do not recommend, by the way, for the record, I do not recommend players below, like, I would say probably not even below platinum. I would say this would be dialogue best suited for like diamond and up. Would you agree? Because there's nobody, there's barely anybody in diamond even beginning to think about this stuff. This is like rocket science to them.
It's healthy stuff to think about, but it's also reasonable to expect it to not be perfect. Because I agree, this is stuff like I would be more likely to say in like coaching a diamond master plus player.
Yeah, I noticed when I was playing, like whenever I go to high elo, I start feeling like the opponent is actually thinking, but that's like diamond 1, diamond 2. Does that actually happen? Exactly. Anything below that is like, what are the odds that the guy's even remotely thinking about, like most of the time below diamond 2, even there, dude, you said it, even like diamond 4, most players still haven't optimized their clears fully. And I'm sure it's
all the way up to pro play. Even if you look at like players like Peanut, for example, who was really well known for his Nidalee. If you look at his clear from a couple of years ago compared to an optimal clear, he's like 20 seconds off on the full clear, even pro players, which is understandable to an extent because pro players need like a really
wide champ pool where we are. Which actually, that's a good little segue because I was going to ask you, one of the threats I've made, I said I flagged people the other day for the Soraka drill in mid. One of the things I flagged players for was too wide of a champ pool. So I said it shouldn't be more than 3 junglers, and you probably should have 1 main that you're climbing with. Would you agree with that, or do you think I'm being too harsh?
No, I completely agree. 3-4 champions tops, 2-3-4. That's a pretty healthy.
Yeah, I told him no. I told him not even a 4 if they're if they're doing this boot camp for obviously just to get the most value out of the time that they're spending. But yes, like. You know what I'm saying when I'm like, this needs to be minimal. Like the amount of champions that we're playing.
Hard. There's a lot of shit going on in League. And if your conditions are changing game to game because you're on a different champion that has different limits and different play styles, it's hard to keep track, It's better to stay focused on just a few. And then climb fast. And if you want to branch out once you're high elo. Once you're actually in a play environment that's solid, then you can branch out. But you need to get there first. Why would you want to practice Lee Sin, Elise, and these champions in silver if you can practice them in diamond,
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is such a fair point. And I've been telling people now for a while, it's like on my climb here, it's like I'm learning Silas. Like I'm playing through low elo up to high, just focusing on Silas. Like that is my practice champ. And thankfully with Smurf Q, I guess I'm facing diamond players earlier rather than later.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you're familiar with. It's very tricky to play with the people in low elo nowadays. You really have to be going above and beyond. Go ahead.
Gotcha. Thoughts on balance between clearing and ganking? I kind of want to give a long answer to this because it's not something I see talked about much. This falls into clear sequencing. Like a lot of junglers, they get their early clear down, they work on it, but they still find that they're falling behind on their CS as the game progresses because they feel like they're being pulled to different fights. And if they don't go to the fight, disaster. If they go to the fight, they fall behind on CS, right? It feels really bad. You don't know what to do as a jungler. When you're already in this situation, it's too late because there's nothing there. If you're far from a fight and you're farming your camps, you can either break off and go and lose farm efficiency, or you can stay and farm and not attend the fight, which feels equally bad. If you're already in that situation, it's too late. How you fix that is 60 seconds in advance. I've never seen any like particularly good videos on jungle sequencing, so I want to break this down real quickly because I think it's a really important thing to think about. It's pretty high level in terms of how high it goes conceptually, but it's something you do want to think about as a jungler. So let's take a really common scenario. Let's say you're a red side jungler and you're coming out of your base, you clear Krugs, you come over, you clear Raptors, and then you see a gank mid. You come and gank mid, there's a fight, a skirmish, and then you say take crab or dragon, right? Pretty standard scenario. So what do you do from here? Your Gromp and your Wolves are up, your Raptors and Krugs are down. Most junglers will default and take Gromp and Wolves here and back or go to their other side of the jungle, whatever. There's not much thought that goes into this process. This right here, this jump is why this happens.
Hold on. You're sharing screen. Damn. Okay, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I'll just redraw real quick.
Yeah. Just redraw your point. My bad. And for some reason I was like imagining what you were saying, and then I.
All good. Yeah.
That you're using the Rift kit. Like, oh yeah. Okay. So you said you would do a red side clear, golems, chickens to mid. You pull the gank off. Yeah.
Something that takes up like say 60 seconds or so into dragon, scuttle, whatever. And then you have these camps up now, and these camps are down. And like, what do you do here? This line right here, this is where junglers go wrong. This is where everything goes wrong. You do not autopilot here. This is where everything falls apart. Because generally speaking, you want your clears, you want your respawns to be linear, right? You want your sequencing to come up in a pretty nice pattern so you can go top to bot, top to bot, top to bot, just clear on respawn. And things get fucked up when you have like, you clear this and this isn't up yet. You clear this and this isn't up yet, right? That's where things tend to get fucky. There are things you can actively do to avoid this without losing out on any camp clear efficiency. So the important thing here is what I talked about earlier, that you tracked this timer, that you tracked the Krugs and Raptors timer before all of this happened. Because you need to know exactly when this camp is coming up in order to make your next decision informed. Let's say this camp is down for another 70 seconds. Krugs respawns in 70, Raptors respawns in 55. Let's say that scenario. If you come and clear this Gromp and this Wolf, there's going to be another, say, 30 seconds before your Krugs comes back up. This sucks. It gets really foggy real quick. It's not necessarily bad. You're not always punished for this. But if this happens too often, where you have these split respawns, it starts getting, like you said, it gets fucky really quick. It gets hard to move around the map efficiently. So what you do in this scenario, whether you go to these camps, has several variables. One, how much gold do you have? How much do you need? Will this 200 gold get you to a good purchase? Is it necessary? Number two, what is the respawn timer on this camp? And where do you go? Because instead of defaulting to Gromp and Wolves here when these respawns are bad, you can also take the opportunity here to just back. Because if you back here, let's say you finish Dragon and these respawns are up in, say, 40 seconds or so. Okay, so if you go to Gromp, Wolves, Raptors, Krugs, these will be up roughly as you like reach them, right? These
Yeah,
will come
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah. Normally,
have, like,
yes. Normally, that's what I instruct people to do, is to basically keep it sequenced so that there's very, very, very little overlap. Right.
Right. But this is also a point where this is not what you should do. Like, this is also not correct to default to.
Yes.
Because you're looking at this and going Gromp, Wolves, Raptors, Krugs. It's a nice sequence, right? It's a nice line. Everything's great.
Yeah.
I'll back after Krugs. No. Because the reason is you're not pathing intentionally. This is a break point where you have the opportunity to dynamically fix your camp sequencing based on what you want to do next in the next, say, 5 minutes of your game. If you clear this, Gromp, Wolves, Raptors, Krugs, your respawns are bot to top. And your next respawn, bot to top. Next respawn, bot to top. You're going to get funneled into playing topside naturally just because of your pathing. So, for example, let's say you clear it, you back, you come down, you clear Gromp, something happens over here, right? And you come and take it. Your camps respawn up here, the enemy jungler comes to take it. You know, like you're playing you're forced to play to the top side because that's what your respawns are like. But this is one of those situations where you can fix your sequencing.
You can basically reverse it.
Back.
Yeah.
Right. These camps are coming back up in 30, 40 seconds. You can back right here. When you reach here, these camps will be back up and you can clear top to bot, you know? These camps will all be back up. And this way you can play bot side if that's your intention. So what you're supposed to do here is assess the map state, assess the waves, assess what is your priority in the next, say, 5 minutes of the game. And these breakpoints allow you to fix your sequencing and path towards where you want to go. Because this is much nicer. You can clear Krugs, Raps, and then if something comes up bot, you can come down to it and you're not punished, you know?
Yeah, this is a good talking point too, because for a lot of the clients in the beginning, I just find that they're just not keeping up in CS numbers, right? So it's like we put them on Mundo, we put them on Hecarim, we put them on Udyr, we put them on whatever, just clears kind of fast, even like Nocturne. And I'm just like, listen, all we have to do is just get you pathing over and over and over again. And the odds are, until about Platinum, you're going to have a grand old time and really get, you're not even going to have any issues. Yeah, you're not going to have any issues. You're just going to get your money and you're going to be ahead of the opposing jungler because he doesn't care as much as we do. And that's all it is. But basically what you're saying is that eventually there comes a point, and I agree, by the way, I'm not arguing. There basically comes a point where your opponents will care more. And then you're obviously going to have you're definitely going to have different win cons where it's going to be eventually after we clear like half of our jungle, it may be beneficial to just swap to the other side instead of, being like, well, we got to finish the whole clear. We just swap to the other side and then rotate, especially if we have a win con over there. It would be a very good excuse. Or, we've already got our item that we want with the gold that we've got. We don't need to like linger around for a mythic or whatever buy, right?
Exactly. Because if you have enough gold after this dragon or scuttle, and this 200 gold doesn't get you anything new, what this does is it shifts your proximity on the map. Because if you go and clear this, you're going to be bot side proximal for the next 20, 30 seconds. Then you're going to be top side proximal for the next 20, 30 seconds. And that's not something that you want to happen automatically because you want your lane proximity to be based on what the wave states are like and what your win cons are like.
And then you could always change your mind too with what you're saying, which is exactly. Always a good point. Yeah.
Right. Like, let's say this wave, let's think about the wave states. Let's say this wave, sorry, I'll clear this to make it a bit easier to read. Let's say this wave is slow pushing back to your side. It's currently in front of the enemy tower and it's gradually slow pushing back to your side. And you're scared that these laners might get dove at this timer because their flashes are down, they're low from the dragon fight and they return to lane, whatever. And you're scared they'll get dove when this lane crashes in say 40 seconds. If you default and clear Gromp, Wolves to topside here, you're topside when that happens. Yeah. On the other hand, if you back here, then you have the decision point where you can also just buy because you have your item, run back to Gromp, and you're immediately proximal when this wave is going to crash. If nothing happens, great. You just keep clearing towards topside. If something does happen, you can come over, You're setting up your pathing and your respawn timers intentionally based on the information that you've gathered from the lane states because, well, obviously it's like it precedes this, right? You have to know, you have to see the lanes.
Yes, this would be, yes. This is some more good high level stuff, which is good. This is great. Cool. Cool. I like this. What was the other question? Oh, I was going to ask something. What the hell was it? Let me see here. I think I wrote it down. Did I write it down? A second. Oh, I love this question. We know NEACE's low jungle low elo jungle recommendations. Does he, aka Phylaris, have any recommendations for low elo junglers? What would you recommend if you were like teaching someone jungle?
Oh, exact same things as you.
Okay.
When you're low,
see, guys, I'm not that dumb.
Yeah, no. Your recommendations are good. Mundo, Udyr, Hecarim, Skarner, these kinds of champions. If you're just trying to climb in this current meta, it's very clear heavy. My reasoning is because a lot of your game as a jungler is PvE, you're just hitting camps. Let's say you work on your clear until your clear is diamond level or master level. You could be a silver player with a diamond level clear on a champion that spends 80% of the game clearing. Holy shit, you're just instantly going to win the game because you're so up on levels, you're so up on gold without even needing to make any decisions, you know? It's just because most of the game, your jungler clears and you practiced your clear to be really good. You're operating on a diamond level, challenger level of efficiency for the majority of the game. It becomes so easy to win on these champions. Now, you can also make an argument that it's a bit of a crutch. And if you fall too far into this type of playstyle, it can be hard to work out of it. There's some level of validity to that, but my point would always be still just get the high elo first. You can branch out from there. You can do whatever you want. I
have a good point about this too, and I've seen a pitfall that comes from this style of teaching in my own coachings actually. So what happens is I tell them, hey, you need to clear fast, and some guys will get really good at it, right? They'll get so good at it, their clear is hitting at like they'll be on Mundo, they'll finish their clear at around like 315, 316, which is huge in low elo. That's ridiculous. And they're going right to Scuttle, they're marching down. Well, I also notice what happens is they think that means that they never skirmish. Like they never, you know what I mean? They never come out of the jungle and actually fight, or they don't recognize how big they are. Like if they spike an item, like say you're playing Mundo and you finish a mythic and you've got 6 and you've got red smite or whatever. It's like now you could dive. Like you could literally just clear towards top or clear towards bottom, and if they've got a wave crashing at about the time that you finish that sequence, you literally just walk at tower, ping on the way like we were talking about, use the pinglish, and then just go under tower and just dive them. But a lot of these guys, I notice it's like, well, NEACE told me, I always call it the train track, right? You were talking about sequencing, I call it the train track. It's like, hey, well, NEACE told me the train track. It's like, well, so now I'm going to train track. And then it's like pulling teeth when I coach them again. It's like, oh, no, dude, like we've got to go fight. Why do you
tell me to do that? Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So I would encourage people to not walk into that one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you're farming because your champion's not that good early game in gank pressure. If you pick a jungler like Mundo, what you're saying is I have basically 0 lane pressure for the first 5-6 minutes of the game. Good luck, laners. You need to pay that back. You're farming to hit your spike to be strong. You're not farming so that you can farm more camps. Like, yes, you want to keep up and farm throughout the game, but you're farming to reach spikes. You're farming to become strong. And once you're strong, you need to apply that.
That was definitely such a equal portion of what I was trying to tell people too. Is like, man, we've invested all this gold into us. Now we've got to leverage, right? We've got to leverage the lead that we got.
Exactly,
that we attained by baiting our teammates for 10, 15 minutes or whatever it is. But this is perfect, dude. Thank you so much for being here today. I will probably clip this and put it on my channel. So if it's on my channel, I will 100% tell my editor, like, hey, make sure to shout this guy out because this was really insightful and really helpful. And yeah, man, anytime.
Thank you.
All right, have a good one. Thanks again. You too, brother.